I stepped off the plane, the weight of the last few days lifting slightly as I breathed in the familiar scent of home. Business trips had become a necessary part of my life, but they always left me feeling detached, as if I were floating somewhere between two worlds. The hustle and bustle of the airport faded into the background as I made my way to the parking lot, my heart quickening at the thought of seeing Emily again. After 3 long days filled with meetings and presentations, I was ready to be back in my own space to feel her warmth beside me. The drive home was uneventful, the roads bathed in the soft glow of the morning sun. I turned on the radio, letting the familiar tunes wash over me, but my mind was elsewhere. I thought about our last conversation, how she had laughed at my jokes, her eyes sparkling with affection. I had missed that. I had missed her. I imagined her in the kitchen, maybe brewing a fresh pot of coffee, the aroma filling the house, welcoming me back. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed the neighbor's car parked outside. Dave had always been friendly, a little too friendly sometimes, but I brushed it off. He was just a guy looking out for another guy's house while I was away. I parked my car, grabbed my suitcase, and headed toward the front door. It was still early, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the lawn. I fished my keys out of my pocket, the jingle of metal against metal a comforting sound. However, as I approached the door, a strange feeling washed over me. Something was off. I paused for a moment, the keys hovering just above the lock. Maybe it was just the remnants of travel fatigue playing tricks on my mind. I shook it off and pushed the door open. The house was quiet, too quiet. I dropped my suitcase by the entrance and called out for Emily. No response. My heart sank a little, but I figured she might still be asleep. I walked through the living room, the sunlight pouring in through the windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Everything seemed in its right place, but that nagging feeling returned as I made my way toward the back of the house. It was then that I noticed the back door slightly ajar. A soft breeze wafted through, carrying with it an unsettling chill. I stepped closer, my heart racing. Peering out, I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold. Just across the yard, I saw Emily slipping out of Dave's house, her silhouette framed by the dawn light. Time seemed to freeze. My mind raced as I tried to comprehend what I was witnessing. Was this a dream? No, it couldn't be. I blinked hard, hopping to shake off the vision. But there she was, my wife, my Emily, sneaking out of our neighbor's house like a thief in the night. I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath me, my world tilting on its axis. Shock gripped me, a cold, hard fist that squeezed tighter with each passing second. I stood frozen, rooted to the spot, watching her as she turned, her hair catching the light just right. She looked beautiful, radiant even, and yet the sight made my stomach churn. I felt a rush of anger and betrayal surge through me, hot and consuming. How could she do this? How could she betray the trust we had built over years of love and partnership? I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I was a statue, a silent witness to my own destruction. With every step she took away from that house, away from whatever had happened inside, my heart shattered a little more. I had always thought of our love as unbreakable, but here I was, watching it crumble before my eyes. As she disappeared around the corner of the house, I felt a surge of clarity. I had to know the truth. I had to confront her. My legs finally moved, carrying me toward the back door, fueled by a mix of adrenaline and heartbreak. I stepped outside, my heart pounding, ready to face the woman I had loved, the woman who had just shattered my world. The morning air was brisk. Each breath I took felt sharp and cold against the backdrop of the turmoil swelling inside me. I stepped outside, the grass damp beneath my feet, and my heart raced as I moved toward the edge of our property. I peered around the corner of the house, half expecting to see Emily. Still lingering, maybe laughing with Dave, maybe sharing a secret I had no part in. But the yard was empty, eerily still. I felt as if I had been punched in the gut. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, a reminder of the betrayal I had just witnessed. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the fence, trying to steady myself. I had always prided myself on being a rational man, someone who could navigate life's challenges with logic and composure. But this was beyond anything I could have prepared for. Images of Emily flooded my mind, a montage of our life together, the laughter, the quiet nights, the dreams we had shared. I had trusted her completely. The thought of her with Dave twisted like a knife in my chest. It was as if someone had ripped the fabric of our life apart, leaving only jagged edges and raw wounds. I couldn't understand how she could do this to us. I tried to replay the last few days in my mind. Had there been signs? Moments that I had overlooked. I thought back to our last conversation before I left. It had been light-hearted, filled with playful banter, but now it felt tainted. Had she been hiding something behind that smile? I felt the anger brewing inside me, a slow simmer that threatened to boil over. The betrayal felt like a betrayal of the life we had built together, the love we had nurtured. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but a part of me hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if I had misinterpreted what I saw? The doubt gnawed at me, but it was quickly overshadowed by the fierce need for clarity. I turned back toward the house, each step heavy with a mix of dread and determination. I needed to face her, to look into her eyes and see the truth reflected back at me. I stormed through the back door, the familiar surroundings of my home now feeling foreign and hostile. "Emily," I called, my voice echoing in the silence. I needed her to answer, to explain. I waited, the seconds stretching into eternity. I felt like a stranger in my own home, the walls closing in around me. Finally, I heard footsteps approaching, and my pulse quickened. She appeared at the end of the hallway, her hair tousled, her eyes widening in surprise at the sight of me. "You're back early," she said, a hint of nervousness creeping into her voice. "Yeah, I am," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I saw you." The words came out harsher than I intended, a growl of accusation that hung in the air between us. Her expression shifted, confusion flickering across her face. "Saw me? What do you mean? Don't play innocent, Emily. I saw you leaving Dave's house." The accusation hung heavy in the air, and I watched as her face paled, the color draining from her cheeks. For a moment, silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the realization of what I had witnessed hitting her like a slap. "It's not what you think," she finally stammered, her voice trembling. "Not what I think," I shot back, anger bubbling to the surface. "You were sneaking out of his house at dawn. What else am I supposed to think?" Her eyes darted away, and I could see a flicker of guilt in her expression. "Please, let me explain," she said, desperation lacing her voice. "Explain what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "How you betrayed me while I was away, how you've been lying to me." Her gaze fell to the floor, and I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I had trusted her completely, and now it felt as if she had shattered that trust into a million pieces. "I thought you were gone for longer," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I stared at her, disbelief coursing through me. Was this really her defense? I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand the truth, but instead I felt a deep sense of loss settling in my chest. The woman I loved was standing before me, but she felt like a stranger, a ghost of the person I once knew. "Emily," I said, my voice cracking slightly, "we need to talk about this. We need to figure out what's happening between us." Her eyes met mine, and I saw the fear reflected back at me. The reality of our situation hung in the air, thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. I had witnessed the beginning of the end, and now we stood on the precipice of something I couldn't fully comprehend. The silence that followed felt like a heavy fog, suffocating and thick. I could see the fear in Emily's eyes, a flicker of something more profound than just guilt. Perhaps it was shame or regret. It was a look that made my heart ache, but I couldn't allow that to soften the storm brewing inside me. I needed answers, and I needed them now. "Emily, just tell me the truth," I urged, my voice steadying as I fought to keep my emotions in check. "What happened? How could you do this?" She took a step back, her body language shifting as if she were bracing for impact. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she began, her voice trembling. "It was just a moment of weakness. I thought it was harmless." "Harmless?" I echoed incredulously. "You thought sneaking out of our neighbor's house at dawn was harmless? You're kidding me, right?" "No, I'm not. She stammered, her hands moving as if to emphasize her words. "I just got caught up in the moment. It didn't mean anything, I swear. Didn't mean anything." The words tasted bitter on my tongue. "You were with him in his house. How could that not mean anything?" Her shoulders slumped and she looked down at her feet, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know. I was lonely. I thought you were gone for longer and Dave was there. Lonely. I felt the anger boiling inside me, a seething rage that threatened to spill over. You couldn't wait a few days for me to come back. You had to run to him. The tears began to spill down her cheeks and I felt a pang of something, sympathy perhaps, but I quickly buried it. I couldn't afford to feel sorry for her right now. It was stupid. I know it was stupid, she said, her voice breaking. I made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it, Emily, I replied, my voice cold and distant. You've shattered my trust. You've broken something that I thought was unbreakable. I know, she pleaded, stepping closer. Please just give me a chance to explain. I love you. This was a mistake and I want to fix it. Love. The word hung in the air like a ghost. I wanted to believe her, to hold on to that sliver of hope, but the pain was too raw, too fresh. You love me, I challenged, my voice hardening. How can you say that after what you've done? You've betrayed me in the worst possible way. She shook her head, her expression desperate. I didn't mean to hurt you, I was just confused. You've been gone and I felt so alone. I let myself get caught up in something I shouldn't have. And now what? I snapped, frustration spilling over. You want me to just forgive you and pretend this never happened? You think I can just forget the image of you sneaking out of his house? I don't know, she cried, her hands clenching into fists. I want to make it right. I want us to go back to how we were. Back to how we were. I scoffed, incredulity spilling from my lips. You can't just erase this, Emily. You can't pretend like it never happened. The trust is gone, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Please, just give me a chance to show you. I'll do anything to make this right. You're my husband and I love you. I don't want to lose you. The desperation in her voice was palpable, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the love I had for her. But it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of what she had done. I couldn't shake the image of her leaving Dave's house, the betrayal etched into my mind like a scar. I need time, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need time to think about everything. Time, she echoed, her voice trembling. You can't just leave me like this. We can work through this together. I don't know if we can, I admitted, the weight of my words pressing down on me. I don't know if I can look at you the same way again. This changes everything. Her face crumpled and I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it aside. I had to be strong to stand my ground. I need space, I said. Firmly, I need to figure out what I want. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. I could hear her sobs echoing behind me, but I couldn't turn back. I felt like I was walking through a fog, each step heavy with the weight of uncertainty and heartbreak. I stepped outside, the world around me feeling foreign and surreal. The sun was climbing higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the yard. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me, but the anger and betrayal surged anew. I needed to think, to process what had just happened. As I stood in the yard, the reality of my situation settled in. I was a man betrayed, standing on the edge of a precipice. My marriage, once a source of joy and comfort, now felt like a prison. I had to decide what to do next: confront Dave, seek out the truth, or perhaps find a way to rebuild what had been broken. But for now, all I could do was stand there, lost in a whirlwind of emotions, grappling with the fallout of Emily's betrayal. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and early morning dew as I stood in our yard, my mind racing with thoughts of Emily and the betrayal I had just confronted. I felt like I was caught in a storm, the winds of confusion and heartbreak swirling around me. I needed to make sense of everything that had just happened, to sift through the chaos and find clarity. I wandered back into the house, the familiar surroundings feeling strangely alien. The living room, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and warmth, now felt cold and unwelcoming. I sank down onto the couch, my head in my hands, trying to piece together the fragments of my life that had shattered before me. As I sat there, memories flooded my mind. Our wedding day, the promises we made to each other, the dreams we had shared. I remembered the way she laughed, how her eyes sparkled when she was happy. I thought of the late-night talks we had, the plans for the future, and the little moments that had woven the tapestry of our life together. But as I reflected, I also recalled the subtle changes that had crept into our relationship over the past few months. The late nights at work, the distracted conversations, the way she seemed to drift away from me at times. Had I been so blind to the signs? I had chalked it up to stress, work demands, life's inevitable ups and downs. I had thought we were just going through a rough patch. But now I questioned everything. Had I ignored the whispers of doubt that had started to creep into my mind? I remembered a night not long ago when I had tried to reach out to her, only to find her lost in her phone, laughing at something I couldn't see. I had brushed it off then, but now it felt like a betrayal of its own. How had I not connected the dots? I felt a swell of anger rise within me, not just at her, but at myself. I had trusted her implicitly, believed in the sanctity of our vows. I had been a good husband, hadn't I? I had worked hard to provide for us, to build a life together. Yet here I was, standing on the precipice of losing everything, and I felt powerless to stop it. I picked up my phone, staring at the screen as if it held the answers to my questions. I thought about reaching out to a friend, someone who could offer perspective, but the thought of explaining everything felt overwhelming. I didn't want to burden anyone with my problems. I was supposed to be the strong one, the reliable partner. But I also knew I couldn't carry this weight alone. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to voice my pain and confusion, to let it out before it consumed me entirely. I considered calling my brother, someone who would listen without judgment, but the thought of sharing this raw wound felt daunting. What would he think of Emily? Would he see her as I once had, or would he view her as a stranger too? As I sat there, I thought about Dave, the neighbor who had crossed a line I never thought anyone would dare to cross. I had always considered him a friend, a good guy who looked out for us. But now I felt a burning anger toward him, a desire for confrontation that simmered just beneath the surface. How could he have done this? How could he betray me like that? I imagined confronting him, the words tumbling out of my mouth in a torrent of rage and hurt. But what would that accomplish? Would it bring me closure, or would it just deepen the wounds? I felt a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion, and a deep sense of loss. I had to confront Emily, but I also needed to confront my own feelings, to figure out what I truly wanted. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I needed to focus on the present, on what I could control. I had a decision to make. Did I want to fight for my marriage, to try and rebuild what had been broken? Or was it time to walk away, to sever the ties that had bound us together? The thought of losing Emily, of letting go of the future we had envisioned, sent a wave of grief crashing over me. I had never imagined our love could fade like this, that it could be so easily shattered by a moment of weakness. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared of being alone, scared of facing the reality of what had happened, and scared of the decisions that lay ahead. I glanced around the living room, taking in the pictures on the walls, the memories frozen in time. Each frame held a piece of our story, a testament to the love we had shared. But now they felt like reminders of a life that was slipping through my fingers. As I sat there, I realized that whatever decision I made, it had to come from a place of honesty. I needed to be honest with myself about my feelings, about the love I still had for Emily, and about the trust that had been broken. It wouldn't be easy, but I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I resolved to talk to Emily again, to delve deeper into what had happened, to seek the truth behind her actions. But I also knew that I had to protect myself, to guard my heart against further hurt. Whatever the outcome, I had to be prepared for the possibility that our love might not be enough to mend what had been broken. With that thought swirling in my mind, I stood up, feeling a newfound sense of determination. I would face this head on, no matter how painful it might be. I would seek the truth, and in doing so, I would find a path forward, whether that led to healing or to a new beginning. The sun had risen fully by the time I gathered the courage to face Emily again. I could still feel the remnants of the confrontation from earlier, the words we exchanged hanging in the air like an unresolved melody. I paced the living room, my mind racing with questions, doubts, and fears about our future. The walls, once filled with laughter and love, felt like they were closing in on me, suffocating in their silence. I glanced at the clock, noting that it was still early. Emily would likely still be in bed, wrapped in the warmth of sleep, unaware of the storm brewing in my heart. I had spent the night tossing and turning, replaying our conversation over and over, trying to make sense of it all. Each time, I felt the anger and betrayal resurface, but I also felt a flicker of the love I had for her. It was a confusing mix of emotions, and I knew I had to confront them both. Taking a deep breath, I made my way to the bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and I pushed it open slowly, peering inside. Emily lay curled up under the covers, her face peaceful in sleep. For a moment I hesitated, my heart aching at the sight of her. This was the woman I loved, the woman I had vowed to cherish. How had we ended up here in this painful limbo? "Emily," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She stirred, blinking awake, and when her eyes met mine, I could see the confusion reflected in them. "Hey," she murmured, her voice still thick with sleep. "You're up early." "Yeah, I am," I replied, my voice steady but laced with the weight of what needed to be said. "We need to talk." Her expression shifted, the peacefulness of sleep giving way to the tension of reality. She pushed herself up, sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a seat across from her, the distance between us feeling both necessary and painful. "I've been thinking about everything." I began, trying to find the right words. "About what happened between you and Dave and about us." "I know I messed up," she interjected, her voice trembling. I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything to make this right." I held up a hand to stop her. "Emily, I need to understand why this happened. I need to know what led you to him." She looked down, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world pressed upon her. "I was lonely and I felt neglected. I thought you were too busy with work to notice me. I wanted to feel wanted, to feel like I mattered." I felt a pang of guilt at her words. Had I really been so consumed by my job that I had neglected her? "But that doesn't justify what you did," I said, my voice firm. "You could have talked to me. We could have worked through it together." "I know, and I regret not doing that," she replied, her voice breaking. In that moment I didn't think. I was just lost. I took a deep breath, trying to process her admission. "Lost," I echoed. "But you didn't just lose yourself, Emily. You lost us. You lost my trust, and that's something that's going to take time to rebuild." "I understand," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you. I love you, and I want to fix this. I want to be better." I looked at her, searching for the sincerity in her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, to reach out and comfort her. But another part of me felt the sting of betrayal still fresh, raw and pulsing like an open wound. "Love isn't enough right now," I said finally, my voice low. "We can't just sweep this under the rug and pretend everything is okay." "I know," she replied, her voice cracking. "I just don't want to lose you. I can't imagine my life without you." The anguish in her voice struck a chord deep within me. I had loved her fiercely, and despite everything, that love was still there, tangled up in the hurt and betrayal. "I don't want to lose you either, but I need to be honest with myself," I said, my heart heavy. "I need to figure out if I can trust you again." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'll do anything to earn back your trust. I'll go to counseling. I'll talk to you about everything. Just please don't walk away." The desperation in her voice tugged at my heart. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but I felt like I was standing on a precipice, unsure of how to proceed. "I need time," I said, forcing the words out. "I need to think about what I want and how we can move forward." "Time," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand." I stood up, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. "I'll be around, but I need space to think. I need to process everything." "Okay," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I'll give you space, but please don't give up on us." With that, I turned and walked out of the room, the door closing behind me with a soft click. I felt a mixture of relief and heartache wash over me. The conversation had been necessary, but it had also opened up wounds that would take time to heal. I wandered back into the living room, the silence settling around me like a heavy blanket. I sank down onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall as I tried to make sense of the chaos in my mind. I had a decision to make, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead was uncertain, but I had to find a way to navigate the aftermath of this betrayal. As the hours passed, I felt the weight of my emotions shift. I was angry, hurt, and confused, but beneath it all there was a flicker of hope. Emily had recognized her mistake and she seemed willing to fight for our marriage. But was that enough? Could we rebuild what had been broken, or was it time to let go? I knew I had to confront my feelings to find out what I truly wanted. The path ahead was unclear, but I had to take the first step, no matter how painful it might be. The days that followed were a blur of uncertainty, each moment stretching into what felt like an eternity. I moved through the motions of daily life, going to work, interacting with friends, but my mind was preoccupied with thoughts of Emily and the betrayal that had shattered our relationship. The laughter and warmth that once filled our home had been replaced by a heavy silence, an unspoken tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud. Emily respected my need for space, but I could see the toll it was taking on her. She would often linger in the doorway of the living room, her eyes searching mine for some sign of hope, some glimmer that things might return to how they once were. Each time I felt a pang of guilt. I wanted to reassure her, to tell her that I still loved her, but the fear of vulnerability kept me from doing so. After a week of restless nights and endless contemplation, I decided it was time to face the truth. I couldn't keep going like this, trapped in a cycle of pain and confusion. I needed to confront my feelings head-on and figure out what I truly wanted. One evening, after a long day at work, I returned home with a sense of purpose. I found Emily in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she prepared dinner. The familiar sight stirred something deep within me, a mixture of love and hurt. I cleared my throat and she turned around, her face lighting up with a tentative smile that quickly faded when she saw the seriousness in my expression. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady but gentle. "Of course," she replied, wiping her hands on a towel and stepping closer. "What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and I want to be honest with you." Her expression shifted from hope to apprehension, and I could see the anxiety flickering in her eyes. "Okay," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've felt so many emotions over the past week: anger, betrayal, confusion. But at the core of it all, I still love you," I admitted, watching her reaction closely. Tears welled in her eyes, and she took a step closer, her voice trembling. "I love you too. I never stopped, even when I made the worst mistake of my life." "I know," I replied, my heart aching at the sincerity in her voice. "But love isn't enough to fix what's been broken. Trust is what we need to rebuild, and that's going to take time." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she said earnestly. "I'll go to counseling, I'll communicate better, I'll be open and honest with you. I want to make this right." Her determination struck a chord within me. I could see she was genuinely remorseful and committed to changing, but I also knew that it would take more than promises to heal the wounds of betrayal. "I appreciate that, Emily, but I need to know that you're willing to put in the work. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you do." She nodded, her expression resolute. "I understand. I'm ready to fight for us. I'll prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve." As I looked into her eyes, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. It was a small flame, but it was enough to guide me forward. "I think we should consider couples counseling," I suggested. "It might help us navigate this together and rebuild the trust that's been lost." "That sounds like a good idea," she replied, relief washing over her face. "I want to understand how we got here and how we can avoid it in the future." We spent the next hour discussing our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. It was raw and emotional, but it felt necessary. We acknowledged the pain, but we also began to envision a path forward. I shared my concerns about her loneliness and how I had been so focused on work that I had neglected her needs. She opened up about her feelings of isolation and how she had let herself be swept away in a moment of weakness. By the end of our conversation, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced since the day I caught her leaving Dave's house. The road ahead would be difficult, and there would be moments of doubt and fear, but I felt a renewed commitment to our marriage. That night as we lay in bed, I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers. "I'm still scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to try. I want to fight for us." Emily squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "So do I. We'll take it one day at a time." As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, but I was willing to face it together. We both had work to do, but we were ready to confront the challenges head-on. In the days and weeks that followed, we began attending couples counseling, learning to communicate openly and honestly about our feelings. It wasn't always easy, but each session brought us closer together. We began to rebuild the trust that had been shattered brick by fragile brick. I came to understand that healing takes time, and there would be setbacks along the way. But as long as we faced those challenges together, I believed we could emerge stronger on the other side. I was committed to doing the work, to being present for Emily and for myself. In the end, love wasn't just about the good times. It was about navigating the storms together and emerging on the other side hand in hand. And as we continued our journey, I felt hopeful for what the future might hold, knowing that we were both willing to fight for the love we had built together. As I lay in bed that night, I realized that while betrayal had threatened to tear us apart, it had also opened the door to deeper understanding and connection. We were not just surviving, we were learning, growing, and ultimately choosing each other anew. And that, I realized, was worth fighting for.